Gentlemen, my name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo, and I would like to share with you some of the things that I think are important for the world today. Listen to this quotation. In the tapestry of legal knowledge, we weave the threads of tradition and innovation. And in the interplay of past, present, and future, we find the profound artistry of law. For in understanding the laws of today, we illuminate the path to a more just and enlightened tomorrow. That's a quotation by Isaac Christopher Lubogo. The idea is that in the pursuit of legal excellency and innovation, may we, as legal scholars and as educators, embrace the wisdom of the past, the challenges of the present, and the boundless possibilities of the future, ever mindful of our duty to shape the law for the betterment of society. Listen, my friends, I have been laboring to understand some of the things that we study in law schools today, or what we teach our students in law schools today, about the idea that the law is a dogma. That reminds me of the book that I wrote, Freedom Through the Law. The ideology that sometimes we end up holding on these facets or this truth of knowledge that have been dominant for the last almost 100 decades. Quite enormous time. And we realize that we have left out, or we better off if we try to accommodate into the law syllabus, for example, new subjects like cybersecurity law, which address the legal implications, for example, of cyber attacks, data breaches, and digital piracy, incorporating into the real world case studies and emerging cyber threats. I'll talk about another subject, forensic law. In Uganda today, we are lucky that we have a university that's trying to do forensics. But forensic law would help us explore the intersection of law and forensic science, including topics like DNA evidence, forensic psychology, and the use of technology in criminal investigations. We barely have many of these, or even of these, in many of our law schools. Digital law, for example, it will help us cover the legal issues related to emerging technologies such as artificial intelligence, blockchain, and virtual reality, including intellectual property and liability concerns. Let's talk about nuclear law. You're going to ask and say, Brother Isaac, why are you telling us about nuclear law? Because the world is moving in that trend. We have to understand, we have to prepare our students to be able to work anywhere in the world. We have to examine the legal framework, for example, the nuclear and surrounding the nuclear energy. For example, things to do with non-proliferation treaties, nuclear disarmament, and the environmental impact of nuclear activities. These are things that I'm talking about that we need to incorporate in our law syllabuses. Listen, how about space law? To explore the legal aspects of our outer space activities, including the satellite communications, things to do with space debris management, for example, and regulations of space exploration. How about sports and entertainment law? Yes, I'm aware that some universities, for example, have been teaching sports, but many of them are disbanded. Even though we have actually have certain substantive books that we've written from suigeneris that talk about sports law, for example. Almost every other law that I'm talking about above, we have actually written about. We need to focus on the legal aspects of sports and entertainment as an industry, including contractual negotiations, intellectual property, rights of athletes, and even artists in terms of their representation. How about indigenous and tribal law? Recently, I wrote a book about protecting the indigenous languages. We have to divulge into rights and sovereignty of issues that have to do with indigenous or even tribal communities, considering historical context and even contemporary challenges. How about refugee and asylum law? Yes, we have a little bit of refugee law, but we don't have them on a compulsory note. Instead, we have adapted certain subjects or course units that have actually been overtaken by events. We need to frame our legal frameworks that govern refugees, for example, asylum seekers, and even displaced populations, and focus on international humanitarian law, for example. How about AI and robotics? Recently, I wrote a book that had to do with future lawyer, that talks about AI in terms of robotics. How about investigating the legal and ethical questions raised by, for example, autonomous machines, from liability in accidents to the use of AI in healthcare and finances? Think about that. That's where we're going. How about if we incorporated subjects like environmental justice law, which examine the legal aspects, for example, of environmental equity, addressing how, for example, environmental laws impact the marginalized communities and vulnerable populations. These, in my opinion, are specialized areas that reflect what we talk about in terms of a revolving nature of the law in response to technological advertisements or advancement for that purpose, and contemporary global challenges. So when we integrate these subjects into law schools, in our curricula, we can better prepare for students in terms of complexing them or preparing them to argue or even thrive under what they call a complex legal landscape in the 21st century. That is extremely important. Listen, my friends, this is not an advocacy to simply tell you about stories. This is an advocacy of dreaming a dream that we can live today and prepare for tomorrow. Because if we don't do that, then the world is going to leave us. Listen, my friends, artificial intelligence, for example, and in terms of machine learning in law, AI, in terms of technological advertisement, has actually become more prevalent in terms of the legal profession. Students, for example, should understand their applications, the implications in terms of the legal practice, and the ethical consideration. This knowledge is crucial for the future lawyers who will encounter AI in contract analysis, for example, or even in legal research and in decision support. My friends, these are things that I'm talking about that we need to incorporate in our law schools. Deans of law schools should comprehend and understand that it's time to debunk the syllabuses and comprehend the law, just like legal readers, like the likes of Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes. How about things to do with environmental sustainability law? With growing environmental concerns, teaching students about laws and regulations that are relating to sustainability, renewable energy, and conservation can even prepare them to address pressing environmental issues and promote sustainable practices in various industries. That reminds me of the book I talked about, Sustainable Environmental Law. Almost all these topics that I'm talking about, we have written as sui generis. Space resource law, for example, as the space exploration advances, legal issues are going to be raised in terms of resource extraction, property rights, in space, have to be addressed. These areas prepare students to navigate the legal complexities in terms of mining asteroids or even extracting what they call resources from celestial bodies. We are aware that Uganda launched a satellite. How about preparing our students in terms of that aspect? How about healthcare, ethics, and the law? Health and the law becomes a fundamental aspect. I know we have a little bit of it, but how about doing it on a compulsory level in an era of rapidly evolving healthcare technologies, including things like genomics and telemedicine, and understanding the ethics and the legal aspects of healthcare delivery? Patent rights, for example, or even patient rights and medical research is essential for future healthcare lawyers and even professionals. Listen, my friends, I'm sounding a drum major for us to debunk the present system of law as we understand it today in terms of curriculum, and comprehend a much better law that we can be able to encompass, to prepare our students in terms of the much bigger diaspora that we're prepared for. Dispute resolutions in terms of ADR, yes, we have a little bit of that, but how about making it compulsory? How about things to do with climate change litigation? Recently I wrote a book about climate change and its adverse effects on the environment, and what is the law in as far as. I'm writing a book right now about things to do with garbage collection, stuff like that. How we need to have laws that comprehend and understand things that can prepare our students to better equip. When you're in countries like Europe, you would understand when we talk about garbage law and how they sieve it out and how they prepare and how people follow it in terms of the letter. These are things that I'm talking about that prepare us tomorrow. How about animal rights law, for example, with increasing awareness of animal welfare, animal rights that address issues such as cruelty, conservation, and even the legal status of animals? Preparing students to advocate for animal rights aligns with what they call evolving societal values. Listen, my friends, I'm sounding a drum major for revamping the law school as we know it today. Listen, let's talk about legal tech and innovation, for example. Beyond understanding the tools of legal tech, students should actually explore how technology is reshaping legal practice, from online dispute resolution, for example, to smart contracts, fostering innovation and efficiency. Look for my book, The Future Lawyer, where I make advocacy of how things are taking. In China right now, we've got robotics that actually presiding over cases. How about preparing our students for that? How about quantum computing and cryptography law? I wrote a book about cryptography, and things to do with bitcoins and stuff. As quantum computing poses a challenge to the encryption and the data security, students should grasp the legal implications of what they call quantum technology for privacy, cybersecurity, and even cryptography. Go find many of those books at lubogo.org and suigeneris.com. Listen, my friends, we've got lots and lots of challenges in law schools. When we talk about human rights in the digital age, not only human rights in the old age. Given the impact of technology on human rights, this area covers topics, for example, like online censorship, surveillance, digital piracy, or privacy for that purpose, and the legal framework needed to protect human rights in this digital realm. Listen, my friend, These specialized areas reflect the evolving legal landscape shaped by what they call technological advancement in terms of global issues and changing societal values. Incorporating them into law schools or in our curriculum will ensure that future lawyers are well prepared to address contemporary legal challenges. My friends, that is just the tip of the iceberg. We're just beginning to talk about many things. Let me talk about certain specialized courses that could actually be incorporated into modern law schools, for example, for purposes of, along with some kind of justification, so that you could comprehend and understand the drumming that I'm trying to talk about. Listen, my friend, if you talk about things to do with neuroethics, for example, and the law, when you talk about neuroethics as an advancement of law, this advancement in neurosciences, for example, will help you to explore the ethical and legal implications of what they call brain research, or what they call cognitive enhancements, or issues like neuroprivacy, or which is crucial, by the way, in undertaking what they call intersection of the law and neurosciences. I wrote a book about guardians of the mind, and these are things that I need to explore, we've explored in terms of preparing our students for tomorrow. How about things to do with disaster and emergency, for example, management law, preparing students for what they call legal roles in disaster responses and recovery, including issues like disaster preparedness, things to do with relief efforts, and things to do with liability in the aftermath of what they call natural or even man-made disasters. These are crucial, pertinent issues that I think we need to prepare our students in terms of embracing a better tomorrow. Listen, my friends, how about things to do with maritime and what they call admiralty law? This basically involves understanding the legal framework governing maritime activities, including shipping international waters, for example, maritime pollution, and even things to do with piracy and essential in a globalized world with extensive maritime trade. When I talk about blue economy, many of you will not understand what blue economy means. But here we talk about when the ocean loses its memory. These are things we need to comprehend in the law of today, because this is the future of tomorrow. Like it or don't like it. How about things to do with humanitarian law and armed conflict? Covering the laws of armed conflicts, including the so-called Geneva Conventions and the legal and ethical considerations surrounding humanitarian intervention, war crimes, and the protection of civilians. Listen, my friends, if you want to call me a drum major, let me be so, because it is important that we comprehend those things. How about arguing in terms of legal aspects of what they call artificial reproduction and genetics? Addressing legal issues associated with assisted reproductive technologies, surrogacy, for example, gene editing, for example, and the rights and responsibilities of parents and donors, and even children born through these methods. That's where family law has to be comprehended and even revamped for purpose of accommodating such things that I'm talking about. Listen, my friends, how about infrastructure and public-private partnership law? Listen, I'm writing a book today about construction law. These are things that we comprehend in terms of exploring the legal intricacies of infrastructure development. For example, when we argue in terms of public-private partnership and regulatory frameworks for essential services like transportation, energy, and even water supply. Guys, I'm being very honest with you. I'm not trying to be braggadocious in any way. I'm just trying to be a drum major that it's time to revamp the law school of Uganda today. Let's talk about digital currency in terms of blockchain. Let's talk about understanding the legal application of what they call cryptocurrencies, blockchain technology, because whether you like it or not, digital money is with us and it's going to stay, okay? Including issues of taxation, for example, regulation, and even fraud prevention. My friends, space tourism as an aspect is also another aspect that we need to comprehend in terms of commercial law or space law for that purpose. As space tourism and commercial space ventures grow, examination of legal challenges are going to be on the high in terms of space tourism, okay, in terms of operation and liability, and the role of private companies in terms of space exploration. Listen, if you're bragging about Uganda launching a space or whatever, a satellite in space, this is something that we need to comprehend, prepare our students for tomorrow. I just talked about animal law and wildlife protection, and this will help us focus on legal issues related to animal welfare, for example, conservation and the protection of what they call endangered species in terms of exploring the intersection of animal rights and even environmental law. Even things to do with biosecurity and pandemic law. These will help prepare our students in terms of addressing legal aspects of public health, energies, in terms of quarantine measures or even vaccine distribution. Talk about the COVID saga that will happen. These are things that we incorporate in terms of these questions that will help us to address issues when we have health concerns in terms of international cooperation during pandemics and even health issues. Listen, how about arguing in terms of what we call cannabis and hemp law, given the evolving landscape surrounding cannabis and even hemp products that help to teach our students about regulations, licensing, and compliance in terms of emerging cannabis industry. I wrote a book about cannabis. Look for it in terms of that. These are areas that are new and they're novel. Sports integrity and anti-doping. I'm writing a book about sports gymnastics in terms of the use of the brain for purposes of predictions. These are issues that we need to comprehend in the revolving law syllabuses that we need to embrace today. Guys, we're not daydreaming. We're simply trying to sound a drum major that it is time to change the law syllabus to incorporate and accommodate things that are basically helpful for purposes of tomorrow. The world that we live in today is intertwined. There is no more difference anymore between something done in America and done in Uganda because of the changing world. I can do something instantly here and it can be felt in America in the split of a second. So listen, with this ideology of holding back or holding on to the ideology of dogma, the law as a dogma, so as it be, so shall be forever and ever, has been and should be overtaken by event. How about things to do with legal psychology? Think about the fact that law is the only profession where you don't teach psychology. Go find my book on the law of psychology and behavior analysis, exploring the intersection of psychology and the law, including topics like witness testimony, for example, jury preparation, or even what do you call witness preparation and the psychology of criminal behavior. These are important subjects that are important to accommodate within our law teaching syllabuses, whether you like it or not. Schools like Harvard, schools like Yale, schools like Oxford, name it, any substantive law school in the world today has been able to make its mark because they've been able to break ground in some of these novel areas. Let us be the people who are going to change the world tomorrow by embracing some of these things. Talk about legal implications of biotechnology, for example, covering the legal considerations associated with biotechnology advancement, such as gene editing. I talked about cloning and what they call biohacking, and as well as biotechnology. In terms of agriculture, in terms of medicine, in terms of ethics, a good lawyer should prepare themselves. We used to say that a good lawyer is not the one who knows where to find the law, right? Who knows where to find it? He's not the one who knows the law, but where to find the law. Argumentatively, we're arguing now that a good lawyer is one who should be able to think beyond their nose. Okay? Dream and go ahead. Think outside the box and throw that box away. Talk about arithmetic bias, fairness in terms of investigating legal challenges related to arithmetics, in terms of discrimination, in terms of regulation of artificial intelligence. Talk about antitrust and big tech regulations. These are things that we need to talk about, guys. And listen, my friends, if we're not going to sound the drum, let nobody else blame you or me for not having sounded the drum. Listen, these are things that are important in terms of appreciating the law of today. My friends, I have a lot that I would love to share, but we'll keep talking you about the need to debunk our education system, the need to debunk the legal profession, the need to debunk our law syllabuses, the need to accommodate our syllabus in such a way that it can accommodate the student of tomorrow, not the student of yesterday. Listen, God bless you. Thank you for attention. My name is Isaac Christopher Lubogo.